Hello and welcome back to another episode of Strong Collectors Comics. I'm your host Jordan, joined today by my plucky co-host Dakota. And today we are talking about our top coolest moments in comic books. Now these are the moments that really are seared into our brains. We reference them often, and they're the moments that we're just like, man, this is a cool book, cool character, some great things going on. And this list is not comprehensive, but these are the ones that matter to us the most. So, Dakota, I'll start us off with a moment that is relatively, well, we always say recent, right? From 13 years ago, more or less. But this is a moment from the Old Man Logan storyline. And this is Wolverine number 72 when, if you've read Old Man Logan, if you haven't, folks, spoiler alerts, there's going to be a lot of those in these. So if you haven't read this one, pause it and go read it when you hear the title. But this is when Dakota, remember, he hasn't used his claws. He hasn't popped them the whole storyline. And he's going, and you're always wondering when it's going to happen. Finally, he comes back home. His family's been killed. And the guy's like, now, Logan, don't go and do anything stupid, huh? And he says, the name ain't Logan, bub. And it's a 2-page spread of snick and the claws. And he says, it's Wolverine. And his claws are out. The blood's coming down his hands. And you're like, you've been waiting for it the whole story. And you're like, oh, yeah. And then he goes to town in the next issue.
That is a good one. That's exactly what I think, like, when we're talking, like, coolest moments, it's like it does matter, the build-up, for sure. Mm-hmm. But it's not like, oh, this is the greatest story ever told. It's like, This is the single page that you see it, and you're just like, oh, here we go. Like, Wolverine's about to go crazy. And obviously, Wolverine's got to be on this list somewhere, because, like, Wolverine is just one of those characters that just has so many moments that he's about to go, like, get revenge or, like, go save the day. Mm-hmm. That's a good first pick, Jordan.
All right.
I'm going to go from hero to villain.
Okay.
So we're going Secret Wars number 8. Secret Wars movie is coming soon. So if you haven't read the Secret Wars books, put that on your list to do.
It's true.
In Secret Wars number 8, you have this build up of Thanos is coming. He's going to come, especially when you've watched the MCU and then you read the comics, you're thinking like, oh, Thanos is the big bad. Like, it takes all of the Avengers and their armies to beat Thanos.
And this is Secret Wars 2015, right?
Right.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
Correct.
Continue.
Correct. So Thanos is coming in, and me reading it, I'm like, I'm expecting, okay, Thanos is going to be a pretty big, like, boss battle here between two pretty big villains. Like, Doctor Doom's pretty strong. Thanos is the MCU's big bad. And just right off the rip, Doctor Doom grabs him, melts him, and he's just holding his skeleton. Right. And it's just like Thanos' spine in his hand. And to me, I was like, because there are some times where you're like maybe the sentry gets ripped in half just to show how powerful Null is. And that to me is a little less cool. That seems like a throwaway type thing. But this seemed like how you do that. Like, we're going to display the power in a really cool way. Right.
And I think he says something to the effect about being a god or something. And he's like, that would appear untrue. Yeah, that is a good moment. I think if they don't adapt that for the movie, I don't know what they're doing. So that's gotta happen. But yeah, that's a good use of that trope of the killing the more powerful guy.
Yeah.
Speaking of some power differentials, Dakota, this one comes by way of DC New Frontier. I think you've heard me talk about this moment before. If you haven't read DC New Frontier, folks, there's a moment in there where Martian Manhunter, he's in his John Jones guise, and Batman figures out who he is and follows him back to his apartment, and he gives this pretty menacing lecture sitting in his windowsill. I would try to recite it, but I'd get it wrong. But the part that I always love is he talks about how he says, there's a multi-million-dollar slab of rock that he needs for the guy from Metropolis, referencing Superman. And then he says to Martian Manhunter, for you, all I need is a penny and a book of matches. And then with that, Batman dips out. And Martian Manhunter, he just has this, he's just so, like, sad and forlorn and, like, dang it. But I thought that was always a cool display of how you use that version of Batman who's like, I don't need the powers. I can assert who I am even against an alien Martian and be like, I could take you down if I wanted to, so, check yourself type moment. That one's always stood out to me.
Yeah, that is That is a really good one because Batman has his contingencies for everybody, and you think of all these elaborate things, but the way he delivers, like, all I need is a match, and it's just like, because then I think they do such a good job of showing Martian Manhunter where he's just like, oh man, he's right. Like, for as powerful as I am, like, it is just that easy to beat me, type of thing.
He ain't wrong.
And I feel like that's conveyed so well. So, yeah, for sure. I'm going to take us over to the X-Men. And, admittedly, and I'm sure some people are going to disagree with this, to me, Cyclops has never really been one of the coolest characters. Like, I know he's a major founding member of the X-Men. He's always a team leader. He's got that strategy going on for him. But I've never really been a huge fan of him. But my favorite X-Men story of all time is in the Astonishing X-Men. And then in that story, I think Cyclops kind of he jumps up the cool list because the big Sentinel comes in, and it depends on the situation. Like, sometimes the X-Men are just running through armies of Sentinels. This was not one of those situations. This one Sentinel was going to take out the mansion and all the kids. Cyclops is like, get behind me, takes his visor off, and then you just get red. And I was like, that is cool. Like, it really shows, like, Cyclops is kind of holding, he's just like, pew, 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 pew. That's him, like, focusing his energies and, like, going at it with some reserve. When he lets loose, page goes red. Sentinel is gone.
Yeah. I think that he goes, I want this thing off my lawn. And then he does it. And then remember Wolverine, he goes, every once in a while, Summers, I remember why you're in charge, which I think is kind of a funny meta way to address what you said. If you're like, Cyclops, is he kind of like a goody two-shoes, whatever? And you're like, all right, he could just roast this thing if he needed to. So, yeah, that's a good moment for sure. So I appreciate the Cyclops representation. Sticking with DC, I'm going to hit you with one from the Sandman, Dakota. I know you haven't read Sandman. And this isn't a spoiler, I don't think. Even if you have, maybe you'll read it. But there's a moment in Sandman where essentially, how can I summarize it? You have Sandman, Dream, Morpheus. He imbued part of himself into this, crystal, basically. And this guy gets a hold of it, breaks out of Arkham, and he starts using it to just drive people pretty much insane, and all this, wild stuff's happening. So, Morpheus, it's one of those moments where he finally shows up to confront him, and you're like, oh, this is going to be sweet. They kind of have their more metaphysical moment. And John D. crushes the crystal, and he thinks he's defeated Sandman because everything's all white, and it's all like a white background. He's like, I did it. I beat him. If you've read Sandman, Morpheus, his skin is all chalk white. And it pans out, and eventually you see that it's John D. just standing on Morpheus's palm, and he's just in the palm of his hand. Because it's like, I put too much of my power into that. When you crushed it, I actually regained a lot of my power. So it's kind of like, I love the way that uses the panels and like the imagery to, there's nothing to, he's, actually become more powerful and can, like, you're just in the palm of my hand now, and I got you. So it's a little more subtle moment, but that's one that's always stood out to me as some cool visuals.
Yeah, it's on my list to read. I know I should. It's one of those. It's like Watchmen, where I don't know why I haven't read it yet, but I just haven't gotten to it. But that does make me
on your list.
If it's in your top list of coolest,
it's a cool moments
in a comic.
I mean, it got
I'm
me.
gonna have to read it.
All right.
My last one. You might have some more after this, but my last one I've got from World War Hulk, right off the bat, first issue. Hulk is coming back from being exiled off-world. He's pretty upset. He's pretty, this is kind of the first time, I know we've had like Smart Hulks and Professor Hulks and stuff like that before, but this was kind of the first time where I remember reading as a kid where Hulk came back and he was, smart enough to use his strength, but he was also still like super angry.
Complete rage
So he was
monster.
super powerful too.
Yeah.
Right. So then he comes back and he's going to like take revenge on all these people that sent him off planet. Comes to get Black Bolt. Black Bolt, I think, whispers stop, and you got the like giant power effect, like blows a crater in the moon type of thing. And then Hulk's still standing there, and he's coming for him. He's like, I didn't come to hear you whisper. I want to hear you scream. And to me, like, that was like, I was just like, what? Because I think I haven't watched that. I don't even think there was a World War Hulk movie, was there? There was a Planet Hulk movie.
They did Planet Hulk cartoon, but they didn't do the movie,
right.
no.
See, that's where I'm like I would want to watch that movie just for that moment.
Yeah.
Because to me, that's like the coolest thing that's ever happened with Hulk. And like, I don't read a lot of Black Bolt, but I know Black Bolt is super powerful.
Right.
And, you know, he's got to reserve, because otherwise he's going to, like, you know, to a normal person, he would have just blown him away with that,
right,
like, display of power. But to Hulk, he was like, no, I want more than that.
That's not cutting
like,
it.
You got to give
Hulk.
me some sort of challenge before I kick your ass. So
I think on that same vein, there was a 3-issue miniseries of World War Hulk X-Men, and I think there's some great moments in that where he's just going to town and just roasting all the X-Men. So maybe that's all a whole badass moment of.
I'll give you another little a little sidebar again off of World War. You should probably just read World War Hulk because it's so many cool moments.
I mean, come on.
But another one of those spin-offs, I think it's a spin-off, is when he meets Ghost Rider, and Ghost Rider's like going to stop him, and then Ghost Rider's like, no, you're coming for vengeance, and you know, vengeance is Ghost Rider's thing. So he's like, on your way, good sir.
He's like, you're not,
not
guilty,
exactly
man.
Like that, but
he's like, good luck. These guys
this
deserve
is justified.
it. I just thought of that as you were saying it, because that was a really cool part too. I always thought that stood out, so I like it, love it. Okay, I got 2 more left for you. One is coming from Infinity Gauntlet, way back in the 80s, number 4. And in this issue, you have basically all the heroes make their last-ditch effort to fight Thanos. And he dispatches everybody in pretty gruesome fashion, if you remember. He puts like a box around Cyclops' head. I think he suffocates, turns Thor to glass, destroys him. We're left with Captain America, who basically kind of looks around, sees everybody's dead, and like cold, walks up to Thanos. And he has a little tiny spiel. He gets killed immediately. But that's a pretty great moment, I think, for Cap, where he's like, I'm probably going to get destroyed by this guy, but I'm last man standing, which I think they took some of in Endgame. But I think that's a great moment in the comic books that has the precedence for that.
Yeah, and I think Cap's another cool one, like, for that, because he's, like you said, he's not like the most powerful. Like, I doubt Captain America's going to put up the same amount of fight as Thor could put up in, like, if he was the last one standing. But it's Captain America, and he's going to, face it head on, knowing that the outcome's probably not going to be in his favor.
But he's still going to take a crack.
That's what a hero does.
That's what a hero does. Honorable mention, real quick, Dakota, is going to be from Death of Captain Marvel, when Captain Marvel kisses Death. Now, in this sequence, he's kind of in this metaphysical death world, and he sees the beautiful version of death, She's going to kiss him, and he's kind of like, wait. And he says, I no longer need the illusion. And, like, Death, I think, wipes and becomes the skeleton face, and then he kisses Death, and that's the moment where he dies. Which I always thought was kind of cool, because he's like, he's kind of processed through all this. I'm dying, I know this is going to happen. And as a powerful hero, to be able to face his mortality in that way, I've always thought was pretty cool. So that's one that I liked. Didn't quite get on the list here. And then finally, we're going way back to some old school Amazing Spider-Man, and this is going to be from issue 33. And you've probably seen this, Dakota, the famous scene with Spider-Man lifting the rubble up off of him. So they recreated this in Homecoming a little bit, but basically there's the serum, Aunt May's dying, he's got to get to it, all the rubble collapses, there's water pouring down, all this stuff, and he can't quite reach it. And he has this inner monologue, talking through his limits, what he can do, what he needs to do, and digs deep, finds the strength he needs, and there's the famous shot of him, lifting all the stuff off of himself, and then he's able to get out, which I think is a good representation of Spider-Man, kind of the triumph of, he's not all powerful, and can even get into situations like that, but when the moment comes, he's going to dig deep and find what he needs to do to get through. So those are our coolest moments from comic books that we've loved, that have stood out to us. You let us know which ones you like, if there's any on this list, which ones we missed. Please be liking, sharing, and subscribing. And until next time, as always, stay strong.